Okay, so we connected, explained the order of the mimer, why the Frierdiker Rebbe explains what he explains, and why he explains it in the order that he does. First explains the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu connects Am Yisrael with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. He explains the idea of Raya Mehemna, which means that Moshe Rabbeinu brings Emunah. Well, it's interesting. In this paragraph, the Rebbe uses the word twice. Mechazkim es Emunah, strengthens the Emunah, which is a word that we did not see in the whole mind. But now it's strengthens the Emunah, but we know the Emunah, and we know that that means bringing Emunah into Pneumius. That can express itself in Das, and that can express itself in Mesiras Nefesh. And Mesiras Nefesh is the Iker Gili of Etzem and Neshama, and that's why after the Frierdiker Rebbe explains the idea of Raya Mehemna, he also explains the idea of Kosis Lamar. So that's the most obvious expression and revelation of Etzem and Neshama. Okay, so the order of the mimer we've got. Now the Rebbe is going to deal with the order of the pasuk, because the pasuk also it's hard to understand in terms of what we now understand it means. Tzarich lahavin, the lefi biur hanal, based on the explanation that we just had. Ha'inyan de kosis lamar. This idea of kosis lamar, what's it relevant to? Shayach levaata tetzave b'nei Yisrael. In the pasuk, what does the pasuk say? Veata tetzave b'nei Yisrael. You should, now I'm going to explain it, I'll be the mind. You should connect the Jewish people to Ardein Seif. V'yichu elecho. Tzvi, could you please share with Shalom? His dog ate his mimer. No, don't give him the whole mimer, just share it with him over there. Right? You don't have to give, there's no halacha about giving away everything you own. Oh, you have to give away 10%, 20%, whatever it is. Right? Now that we've explained, you have, the pasuk says like this: you, the simple pshat, you will command the Jewish people. They will bring to you Shem and Zayas, Kosis Lamar. That will be crushed as a source of light. There should be a constant candle. Okay. So, wait, Moshe, if you're in shiur, be in shiur. If you're saying korbanos, say korbanos. But don't do both at once, because then you're doing a bad job of learning and a bad job of saying korbanos.
So what should I do then, Rabbi? It's not korbanos, it's the morning.
Morning blessings, you have to say them.
So, yeah, so...
You should say them standing up. You have to say them, you can't learn Torah until you say those, the least birth. No, you gotta say it. So now, if you think about that pasuk based on how we learn pshat in the pasuk, what does it say? Va'ata tetzave b'nei Yisrael. You, Moshe Rabbeinu, are the Raya Mehemna, and you connect the Jewish people to Ardein Seif. What should the next words be? Kosis Lamar. What's the greatest expression of you connecting the Yidden to Ardein Seif? Kosis Lamar. What's v'yichu elecha Shem and Zayazach in the middle? Now, I know it's hard to read the pasuk that way. You can't read the pasuk that way, but Kosis Lamar is that which comes after, or is actually not comes after. It's one with Raya Mehemna. We just said it's one and the same thing. Kosis Lamar is simply an expression of Veata tetzave b'nei Yisrael. Raya Mehemna. So in the pasuk, there's something in between them. V'yichu elecha Shem and Zayazach. And that we know is Am Yisrael being Meisif Teisofes Moshe, that we elevate Moshe. But what's that got to do with Kosis Lamar in terms of how we've now explained it? Simple pshat in the pasuk, we get it, okay. But in terms of how we explain the pasuk now, Veata tetzave b'nei Yisrael and Kosis Lamar are one and the same thing. That was our way of explaining the Frierdiker Rebbe's mimer. So the mimer, the order of the mimer is great. Now we don't understand the order of the pasuk. Okay, that'll be the rest of the mimer, basically. I mean, there'll be other things going on, but that is what we'll try to understand. How many people here have ever learned the Sikha, Kam Rabba V'Shachtel Rav Zera? Some of you have. Okay. If you ever learned it, believe me, you'd know. And the people who've learned it just said that you'd know. So I was thinking that we might just take 2 days to learn it quickly before Purim. Tomorrow and Thursday. I think we're going to do that.
It's really not fun.
What?
It's very fun.
It's also important to learn before Purim. So I think tomorrow we'll stop this just for a couple of days, and then we'll do Kam Rabba Shachtel of Zayda. We'll do it quickly, and we'll do it in 2 days, and then we'll come back to this. Okay, so now we have to understand Pshat in the pasuk. V'tzarich lahavin the lefi bir hanal. Based on what we've said, inyan the kosis lamar. This idea of kosis lamar is shayich levater tetzave b'nei Yisrael. That is shayach. It's one and the same thing. That was the Rebbe's explanation of why the Frierdiker Rebbe explains the Maimer the way he does. Lazeh, what does that mean? Shemesha, is pashtusa delay, and the expression of Mesha shebechol dor, in every generation. Mekashim umechabrim, connect and join as Yisrael imarensa with the Eibishter. Ubakosov, but in the pasuk, kosis lamar is separate from Veata tetzave. Kosis Lamar, Nemar Kosis Lamar, it said Behemshech as a continuation of V'yichoi Lecha Shem and Zayzach. It seems to be Shaykh to V'yichoi Lecha. Kosis Lamar isn't Shaykh to Veata tetzave, which is Moshe connecting us to the Eibishter, which in the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer it is. In the pasuk, it's Shaykh to V'yichoi Lecha Shem and Zayzach, that we're going to take things to Moshe and elevate Moshe. Those are 2 separate ideas. They both have to do with God and Judaism. I get it, but they're 2 separate ideas. The inyan v'yichu elecho, this idea of v'yichu elecho, Yisrael mevin shemen l'Moshe, that we bring the oil to Moshe, who Yisrael meisifin teisofes or b'Moshe, is that Am Yisrael adds an increase in light in Moshe. K'mu v'li'il, as was said earlier, Sif Beis, in the 2nd chapter, we said that already. That was the answer to our 3rd question. What were our 5 questions?
The first question was
Lashon and content. Why does it say Veata tetzave b'nei Yisrael? Right? It should say Tzavis b'nei Yisrael. The language is strange. Also, it emphasizes that Moshe seems to be the one commanding. Okay, so we answered that by saying what it means is Moshe connects the Jewish people to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, what's the next question?
why do you give it to Aaron?
Why are you giving the oil to Moshe? V'yichoi lecha Shem zayzach. Why elecha to you? Moshe should go to Aaron. Aaron lights the menorah. Right? What did we say that means? That Am Yisrael brings a great, this is what we just saw, Teisofes or in Moshe, that we elevate Moshe somehow. We don't understand how that happens. At no point does the Rebbe explain that, but we will see it in the mind. But that's pshat in that part of the pasuk. What was the 4th question? Kosis Lamar, not Kosis Laha'ir. And what does that mean? Well, we know that. We answered that question. Ma'ar is the Etzem and the Neshama that the questioners of Gullus brings about a revelation of Etzem and the Neshama. And we haven't answered the 5th question, that the constant light as opposed to the air but big. Okay? Those were our 5 questions. Okay, so in the context of answering the 3rd one, we said what we just said. V'yichoi lecho is Am Yisrael bringing to Moshe Teisofes or. Somehow. Whatever that means. We have no idea what that means at this point because the Rebbe didn't explain it at all. But there's some elevation of Moshe as a result of our Veata. Okay. Tess begins a whole new mahalach in the mind. We're going to answer this question. And that means we have to come to a whole new understanding of Purim. We're back to Purim again in the mind.
So we were just left off with the question?
We're left off with the question. We're about to answer it. That's what we're going to do. We're about to answer the question. Vehine, hakosav akibel Yehudim es shechalu lasos. That pasuk in the Megillah, that the Jews accepted that which they began to accept, which means the full acceptance of the Torah was at the time of Purim and not in the time of Matan Torah, which we saw in Chazal, we saw in the Frierdiker Rebbe explained that. Medaber b'pashtus is speaking simply b'hazman shala achrei hanes de Purim, is speaking after the miracle of Purim. That pasuk happens after at the end of the story when everything's already been organized properly. Haman is dead, and Esther is queen, and the house of Haman has been given to Esther and Mordechai. All of the miracles have already happened. And then it says, now, that's very, very interesting, because what did we say that actually meant? What was V'kibul Yehudim all about?
Mesiras Nefesh.
Mesiras Nefesh. The Mesiras Nefesh of the Yidden that brought about a greater acceptance of the Torah. That's very interesting, because the pasuk is after the Mesiras Nefesh. There's no Mesiras Nefesh at this point in the story. Now we won. Now we're just partying. It's very interesting. Doesn't say in the context of there's a Gezerah and the Yidden were Makabel, the Torah at the time of the Gezerah in the greatest way imaginable, because they were Meser Nefesh to be Mekayim Torah and Mitzvahs, B'far Hesia, against all odds, etc., etc. Doesn't say that. Tells the whole story. At the end of the story, after the miracle has happened, then it says V'kibul Yehudim. Manyan. Now, you could say that it relates to what happened before. Okay, fine, that's true, you could. But it's very interesting to note where it is in the Megillah. In Pashtus, it's after the Nes. Okay, so the Rebbe's going to explain all that. V'yesh lemer. Now, there is no footnote, right? So V'yesh lemer usually means that the footnote is this mimer. The Masha Kosu B'Maimer, that which it says in the mimer, the Peirush V'kibul Yehudim as Asher Chalu Lasos, in the Friedrich Rebbe's mimer. Right? That the explanation of the idea of the Yidden accepting the Torah at the time of Purim, who is Shibiyamei Achashverosh, Kiblu Masher Chalu B'Matan Torah. In Mei Achashverosh, they fully accepted that which they had only begun to accept at the time of Matan Torah. That idea, who Gam Lefi Pashtus Akosov, is also in accordance with the simple meaning of the pasuk, V'kibul, that this idea of V'kibul, Hayalach Ve'anes, that there was some Kabbalah Torah after the Nes. Now, there might still have been a great Kabbalah Torah before the Nes, in the midst of the Gezerah. But the simple pshat in the pasuk is the Kabbalah Torah was after the Nes. What's that Kabbalah Torah? The Kabbalah Torah was the Mesiras Nefesh. There's no more Mesiras Nefesh after the Nes. Everything's fine. Things are good. Right? It's now like the times of Moshe, not like the times of Mordechai. Right? I mean, the times of Mordechai that we're discussing are before the Nes, not after the Nes. After the Nes, everything's fine. Other Rabbah. A very, very calm period in Jewish history after the Nes of Purim. Right? What did we do relatively soon afterwards? Built the second base of Mikdash. Right? With the help of whom? The king of Persia, who's sort of the star of the story here. Not the same guy. His son. Okay. That's pretty interesting. I mean, it was a pretty good victory, that Purim victory. Right? Okay. What happened after Hanukkah was, it ended up being disastrous. Right? Hanukkah was an unbelievable miracle, but the years following ended up becoming, not such great stuff happened. And it ended up ultimately in the destruction of the Second Temple. Whereas Purim, unbelievable. Built the second base of Mikdash. How long did the second base of Mikdash last? 420 years. First base of Mikdash? 410 years, you think. Chassidus. Works, right?
What does that mean? Chassidus? Yeah, I know what I'm saying.
That word Chassidus?
Right.
What does it mean in the puzzle?
Question is?
What does it mean in the puzzle, that word?
I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what I mean in the puzzle.
Crushed. That's a remez to the two Batei Mikdashos. How long did we light the menorah in the base of Mikdash? Chosis shonim. 420, 410. Both Chav Taf, Yud Taf. 420, 410. Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Val Pi Zeh. Zeh should be Mei Achashverosh, that which in the days of Achashverosh, Kiblu Mashe Chalu B'Matan Torah, we fully accepted that which we had only begun at Matan Torah. Shnei Inyonim. There's two levels of that. There's two aspects of that. HaKabbalah Shaisa B'Zman HaGezerah. The Kabbalah was at the time of the decree, and that was Al Yedei Mesiras Nefesh Shalahem, through their great Mesiras Nefesh. Kemefurish B'Maimer, as is explained in the Maimer. Simple pshat. The Kabbalah at the time of Mesiras Nefesh, they and again, what was the Mesiras Nefesh was both that they fought back, but the Iker Mesiras Nefesh was what? That even though there were decrees against Torah and mitzvahs, they kept learning Torah. Before Mordechai got 22,000 kids to say psukim together in the main football stadium in Tehran, or in Red Square in Moscow during the Soviet reign. He did. That's what he did, right? It's a medrash, right? Okay, that he got 22,000 kids together to learn Torah. Where? In the center of Tehran. The center of Shushan Habira. What does that mean? Oh, that's nice. What does that mean? That means getting 22,000 kids to say psukim and say yechi in the middle of Red Square during the Soviet Empire. Okay, great. That's going to go over well, isn't it? Okay. After 9/11, so of course the airplanes were flying. It was very close to Rosh Hashanah, and the Bachrim here couldn't get to the Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah. So everybody was in panic. So finally the airport opened up Meitzi Shabbos. I think Rosh Hashanah was Monday night, pretty sure. Like that year, I can look it up, but it was Monday night, Tuesday night. It can be both, right? So it was either Monday night or Tuesday night. So it was tight. It was very tight. Usually they get there a little after Chayel, but Chafel. So I went to the airport. We had 2 Bachrim flying. Now everybody had tickets, but your tickets are sort of useless because the flight you were on is gone, and now it was a matter of getting on any airline with whatever ticket you had. So in those days, Ben Gurion, the ticket office was literally smaller than this room, and there were windows on each side, and there are 500 Lubavitcher Bachrim trying to get on flights that night. So that whole area of the airport was Lubavitch. So I was there with 2 of my kids, and it was so beautiful watching the Bachrim. One Bacher was there; he had given up his ticket, so he didn't have any chance of going there. So he came to the airport with a bottle of mashka and a cup. And anybody who got a ticket, he poured them a l'chaim, and they'd say l'chaim before they ran off to their flight. That was his job. He came just for that. He didn't. He made a mistake. He gave up his ticket. So he got the money back. So he couldn't go. And one kid walked up. He finally made it to the glass where the lady was sitting. There were 8 or 10 people on each side from different airlines. This would be KLM, and this is Air France, and this is Lufthansa, and they're all the airlines. And he comes. He's up there now. He can take care of himself, no problem. I saw this with my own eyes. This is a 15-year-old kid, right? Chassidus of the Rebbe Bamish. He goes up to he could take care of himself. Puts his hand back. About 15 guys put tickets into his hands. Didn't make it to the front. He didn't take care of himself. Made sure he took care of 15 chevra. Put them all down. Now this might mean that he won't get, because who knows whether there's 15 places. But in any case, he puts them all down. Says, "We need tickets." The woman went, "What do you mean we?" He said, "We." She saw what he did. She said, "I'm getting every single one of you on a plane. Every single one that you just got." She's walking back and forth to all the airlines with these tickets, making sure everybody gets on the plane. So about 20 kids, including 2 of my sons, got tickets together on LOT Polish Airlines. So they flew through LOT. Fine. So these were all Bachrim from Tzfas, Chevra. So they made it to Warsaw. They had the daven in Warsaw. So now, what was going on in airports in those days? Army. Every country had their army in the airport. Not police, army. The Polish army is in the airport. The American army was in every airport in America. It was heavy times. So the Polish army is in the airport. So the Polish army sees these 20 Jews start putting on strange things. No one's putting on a talis, right? Because they're all Bachrim, but they're all, wrapping up these bizarre black boxes. So they asked what's going on. And someone, I don't know who talked to them, someone talked to them in English and said, well, we're praying. So the Polish army said, okay, we'll make sure you have some quiet. The Polish army guarded these Jews while they were praying. Made sure it was quiet and no one would bother them while they were playing. And then they all sang a particular song and danced around. And it wasn't Vibi Me'achash Veders, it was a long time of year. They sang a particular song and were dancing in the Polish airport, singing the song at the top of their lungs as the Polish army was guarding them. Purim, Pasha Purim. So, but that was when the army was guarding us. This is when the army was pointing their guns at us, and Mordechai was still having the Yidden lips learn. So that was the Mesiras Nefesh at the time of the Gezeda. And there's another level of Mesiras Va Kabbalah, 5th line, 6th line, Va Kabbalah Shaisala Achrei, and they used to put it. And the Kabbalah that was after the miracle. Now, obviously, this Kabbalah has to be what the Rebbe says it is in the next line. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. What do I need it for? Shehi naili siesha, that obviously is a higher level of acceptance. If it's a lower level of acceptance, well, then what do I need a new level of acceptance for? That level of connection to Torah I already have through the first level in the Mesiras Nefesh. So there must be a higher level of acceptance of the Torah. Gam mi Kabbalah bizman Gezeda. Even then, the acceptance of the Torah at the time of the Gezeda. So now there's two different levels of accepting the Torah, the Rebbe says, at the time of Purim. At the time of the Gezeda and after. And why are we saying that? We're saying that because the Pasuk says we accepted the Torah at the time of Purim, and that Pasuk is placed after the miracle. So that seems to be simple pshat, that that's when it happened. Right? So therefore, and now there's clearly an acceptance of the Torah that was based on the Mesiras Nefesh before the miracle. How do I know that? Well, that's the whole mimer of the Friedrich Rebbe. Okay, but based on the placement of the pasuk, it also seems that there's a higher level, and that's afterwards, and that's why the pasuk is placed there to tell us that there are two different levels of the acceptance of the Torah: the acceptance through the Mesiras Nefesh before the miracle, at the time of the decree, and the acceptance of the Torah after the miracle, when the decree has been annulled. Well, okay, so let's see. Now the Rebbe says, I'm sorry, one could say, again, no footnote, Shal derech zeh, in this fashion, hu benegeh kasis lamar, also relative to the idea of the crushedness of Golus bringing about a revelation of the essence of the soul. Right? And that, relative to that idea, Sha'al Yedeya Inyan de Kosis, Shubazman Golus, by virtue of the crushedness at the time of Golus, Magim Lamar, you come to a revelation of the essence of the soul, Etzem and Neshama, the Shnei and Yanim Bezeh. There's also going to be two different ideas, two different aspects to that. Similar to the two different levels of Kabbalah Torah.
That is the two levels of the soul.
Two different levels of Kosis Lamar. We don't know what they are. We'll see what they are. This is the boomba in the mind. This is what's so astounding about this mind.
This is a Chiddush by the Rebbe, no?
This is a big Chiddush of the Rebbe. And it makes sense it's a Chiddush of the Rebbe, so we'll see what the Chiddush is. So then we'll understand why it's a Chiddush of our generation specifically. Kishi Yisrael nimsaim b'matzav shel kosis. When Am Yisrael is found in a situation of kosis, mitzad zeh, as a result of Sheyeshnam gezedus, there are decrees al kiyum Torah mitzvahs regarding the performance of Torah mitzvahs. Obviously, decrees prohibiting the performance of Torah mitzvahs. K'mei shaya b'zman amidas ha-maimer, as there were at the time that the Friedrich Rebbe said the maimer in 1927 in Russia. Val yedei zeh, and as a result of the crushedness of Golus, megim laha-ma'or, Al Yedei Mesiras Nefesh. By virtue of this, they come to a revelation of the Etzem and Neshama, and that's revealed through Mesiras Nefesh. And certainly, the Rebbe doesn't say it here, we'll see it, but there's certainly at the time of the saying of the Maimer of the Friedrich Rebbe in Russia, in the Soviet Union at that time, obviously there was unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh for anybody sitting there. Right? Because who else is in the room? When some Yidden got out of Russia in the 60s, so they came to the Rebbe. One of them was a serious Talmud Chacham, Notik. Notik, there's a lot of Notiks in the Bible. So he lived in here in Eretz Yisrael, in Nachmas Chabad, Kiryat Malachim. And Natak went with about 3 or 4 other guys who were very, very simple Jews. Natak was Talmud Chacham. The rest of them were very, very simple Jews. And the Rebbe asked them to go visit Rav Moshe Feinstein. And the secretariat got in touch with Rav Moshe, and they said, there's some Yidden who just got out. Rav Moshe was from Russia. Right? Some Yidden just got out of Russia, and the Rebbe would like them to come visit him. So Rav Moshe was more than happy. He said, fine. So they went to visit Rav Moshe. Now everybody was very shocked. Who would you think the Rebbe would send to Rav Moshe? Talmid Chachamim. They could talk to Rav Moshe and learn it. And the Rav Moshe would be so amazed at the fact that here are these Jews in the Soviet Union and they can learn Torah. That this was just amazing. One of them was, Natak was a Talmud Chacham. The rest, very simple Jews. Very simple Jews.
Someone Natak?
I don't know which Natak it was. It's related to the Natak from Chicago, from Free, yes. Probably his father. So, but I don't, the genealogy of Natak I don't know, but yes, it's those Nataks. It is those Nataks. Yeah, absolutely. So they went to see Rav Moshe, and they were talking about life in Russia, etc. And they explained to Rav Moshe, that in order to daven mincha and maariv, so they had to go to the shul one way and leave the shul another way, and no 2 people could walk together because that would arouse suspicion. So they would all go one way and leave another way, but all different ways. No one would go the same way, back to their house. So they'd have to, very circuitous route to get back to your house, because you might be going backwards for a couple of blocks before you got to go forward. So Rav Moshe said to them, this Mesiras Nefesh for Mincha Maariv, you could have davened Mincha Maariv at home. So they said, it's also in Shulchan Aruch that you daven Mincha in a minyan. It says in Shulchan Aruch you daven in a minyan. And the leis breva, there's no choice. Is there? Moshe started to cry and realized what was the Mesiras Nefesh of these Yidden. They were Mesiras Nefesh to daven Mincha in a minyan. Mele daven Mincha in a minyan. So they would walk all over the place in order to make sure that they would daven minyan in a minyan. So if anybody ever gives you the luxury that Lubavitch doesn't believe in minyanim, you can tell them that's scary. Some people are so spitz Chabad, they think it's also to daven in a minyan. We saw the Rebbe daven in 3 minyanim a day. Not all the years of the Messias, but the last years that we saw the Rebbe used to daven with a minyan three times a day.
Before he wouldn't?
Many, many years the Rebbe didn't daven with a minyan. They'd make a minyan outside the Rebbe's room for Kriyas HaTorah.
And during his CS, he went down with him?
For 25, 30 years of the Messias. First years. Our Shabbos, yes. During the week, generally not. But that's not a license for Chassidim not to. The Rebbe is the Rebbe, and the Rebbe does what the Rebbe does, and we don't ask questions. Right? But
no one asked why he wouldn't went down with him during the 30 years that he didn't
the
daven with
Rebbe
him?
does, I'll say exactly what I just said. The Rebbe does what the Rebbe does, and we don't ask questions. Because if we ask a question, it means we think that there's going to be some explanation that we might understand based on where we are. I'd assume that there might be an explanation, but it's not necessarily going to be understood by where we are. We don't ask questions about what tzaddikim do. We really don't. We really don't. Not that tzaddikim aren't kashur to Shulchan Aruch. The Rebbe davened every day. Right? But in the later years, the Rebbe davened with a minyan 3 times a day. 10 o'clock chakras, 3:15 mincha, and the Maariv was depending on summer, winter, 7:15, 9:15. You couldn't daven Maariv at 7:15 in the summer. But okay, so Kosis Lamar, there's 2 inyan. So when the Yidden are in a situation of golus, and the situation in Golus is a difficult one and a terrible one, and there are decrees against the performance of Torah and mitzvahs. So that arouses in the Jew an essential connection to the Eibishter, and they overcome unbelievable obstacles in order to keep Torah and mitzvahs, because the crushedness of Golus reveals etzem and neshama. And where does that crushedness come from? From what we will call now the situation in Golus. I mean, that's what the Rebbe is calling it. The situation in Golus is bad. And that brings about a revelation of a connection to the Eibishter that's much more powerful than anything that person had ever experienced before. Okay? That's those Yidden who were Meishan Nefesh to go daven in Mincha. Rabbi Kagan in Petersburg, they called him the Tzaddik of Petersburg. There was no mikveh for women in Petersburg. That means husbands and wives had no relations with each other. So there needed to be a mikveh. They weren't having children. So he built a mikveh in his house. How did he build a mikveh in his house? Every day he went to work. He had a briefcase. He put a little bag, this big, of dirt in his briefcase. And he took it out of the house. He dug part of it with a spoon. Right? Finally, he evidently got some shovel somehow. How they got a shovel into his house, who knows? Slowly but surely, over years, taking a bag of dirt out every day, and then bringing in every day a little piece of pipe and two tiles. Right? Every day, bringing in a little bit of stuff and taking out a little bit of stuff without having anybody know about this. He ended up building a mikveh in his house. Right?
How long did it take?
Oh, years. But he built a mikveh in his house. And a mikveh for women in his house. It's a kosher mikveh. So women in Petersburg, you go to mikveh. Now, if you went to mikveh in Petersburg, what do you have to do? Well, my goodness gracious, going to their house, obviously, 15 women couldn't show up at the same time. That would be the end of that. So it was like a major operation to get women to, show up, and it's crazy. They did it. This is in Petersburg in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. At one point he got out, he came here. And then after the Soviet Union fell, he went back to Petersburg. There's a shul in remote. It was his shul for years. But when everything opened up, he went back to Petersburg. Because he's Lamar. I'm not counting that small little line at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom. Because he's Lamar. There's another aspect of Kosis Lamar. That even when the Jews are in a state of harchava means breadth, width. I mean, it's calm. There's no pressure. Harchava begashmias. Harchava physically, gam harchava beruchnius, also beruchnius. They're able to serve God. No one's trying to kill them. They can make a living, and they can keep Torah mitzvahs. Harchava begashmius, harchava beruchnius. Elo, but shem nimtzoim begolos. But they're found in golos. Gula doesn't come. Valderech, similar to Hamatzav Shayla Achrei Nes Purim. After the miracle in Purim, what does it say? You know the song, Shel Yudi Ma'aseh V'Simcha, Sos and Vikar. It was good. It was good. We sing a song about it. I mean, most of the Jewish world, right? Most of us sing a song. The Yudi Ma'aseh V'Simcha, light, joy, Sosin, right? Sosin Vikar. Vikar is dearness. It was good. It was a good time. But Pashtus, simply, meaning physically, but Gam Beruchnius, also Beruchnius, spiritually. V'Yiseri Not only that, not only was the darkness lifted, Shegam Beis Haman Nitan LaEsther, also the house of Haman was given to Esther, which means what? Shaya Azar Mainladis Hafcha. Then there was even the transformation, Nafechu, the transformation of that which was negative into something positive. It wasn't just that the negative disappeared. The negative was turned into positive. Beis Haman became Beis Esther. Ella, but what? What do Chazal say in the Gemara Megillah? Akati avdei Achashverosh anan, but we're still servants of Achashverosh. Haven't thrown off the yoke of Achashverosh. Achashverosh is king. It's much better than it was. My goodness gracious, it was terrible. It was a disaster. And then what happened? Baruch Hashem, a nes, Pashat a nes that we celebrate today. Right? Shloishet Elafim, what year was it? Shloishet Elafim, Taf Dalet, I think, right? Shloishet Elafim, 404. I think that's one. 3304, I think that's one. 3404, I think. That's an important appreciation. Right? So what, 2400 years ago, we celebrated this incredible miracle. Unbelievable. But what? After the miracle, where were we? Still in Gullus. Still in Gullus. Achashverosh is still in. So that's the second level of Kassis Lamar. There's the Kassis of Lamar that is a function of the crushedness of Gullus, brings about a revelation of Etzem and Neshama, and that is that the terrible situation pushes the Jew to the wall, and the Jew exhibits an unbelievable strength in revealing his essential connection to the Eibishter. That's usually what we talk about. We talk about Mesiras Nefesh. That's usually what we talk about, Kassis Lamar. Up until now in the Maimon, every time we mention Kassis Lamar, that's what we meant. Now all of a sudden the Rebbe says, no, there's a second level of Kassis Lamar. After the Nes, when everything is good, there was a higher level of Kabbalah Satara than there was before, and a higher level of Kassis Lamar than there was before. Because what are the Yidden crushed by now? Not the situation in Gullus, but the etzem existence of Gullus.
And this is
wow. Absolutely.
How is that?
I think that's intuitive.
Saying
Think about it.
On the one hand, you have the question is from the fact that you're in Gullus and the Gullus is not, it's challenging, and on the other hand you have just that you're in Gullus.
What's Gullus? Good or bad?
Bad.
Right. If the Gullus we're in, good or bad? Looks pretty good to me. A lot of Jews seem to like it.
Still bad.
If a Jew can be crushed by the essential existence of Gullus now, then he's on a much higher level than the Jews in Russia, last generation. Mamish exactly the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe. Frierdiker Rebbe, Kassis Lamar, the first level. Our generation, Kassis Lamar, the second level.
Can you please repeat the second level?
Let's see it. We didn't see it inside yet. Let's see it. But we're still in Gullus. They're broken and downtrodden. Kassis. Mizeshem begolus. By virtue of the fact that they're in Gullus. Not by the situation in Gullus. The situation in Gullus is fantastic. They have yeshivas. They have gashmias. They have ruchnias. It's unbelievable how good the Gullus is. But it's still Gullus. We'll see on the next page what that means. Okay, it's still Gullus. That was the second level improvement. The Yidden reached that level also. That was the highest level of Kabbalah Satar. Let's see, where the Rebbe is going to explain it much more fully. He'll fill in the blanks on the next page. And by virtue of the Kosis Yisrael, the crushness, the Yidden, by virtue of the fact that they're found in Gullus, not the situation in Gullus, but the essential existence of Gullus. Magim Lamar, they reach an even higher state of Mar, and we'll see the Rebbe is going to explain that throughout the rest of the Bible. Va'inyanhu, the matter is like this. So the Rebbe just said, in the beginning of Tess, what did the Rebbe say? The Rebbe said, if you look carefully at the Megillah, you see something quite astounding. V'kibel Yehudim is she'echalu that pasuk is after the miracle. Up until now, we have been saying that pasuk is telling us that as a result of the gezeras of Haman, as a result of the terrible, terrible situation in the world, the whole Jewish world at that time, the Yidden were Meiser Nefesh to keep Torah mitzvahs, and that Mesiras Nefesh resulted in a greater acceptance of the Torah than at the time of Matan Torah itself. That's Chazal. And the Frierdiker Rebbe explained that Chazal. Okay. That's what we've been saying up until now. And that's Kosis Lamar. The crushedness of Gullus brought us to the Etzem, the essential connection that a Yid has with the Eibishter. Therefore, our acceptance of Torah was even greater, because we were willing to accept Torah even when it wasn't comfortable. By Mesha, Kafalei Marka Gigis. What does that mean? That we were under duress. What was the duress? How could you possibly say no to the Torah when the Eibishter is standing in front of you and revealing himself in the most powerful way possible and saying, here, take the Torah? How can I possibly say no? The revelation was so powerful, it overpowered me. It overpowered all of us. The Eibishter took away, so to speak, our Bechira Chavshis. Not Bechira Chavshis in the face of absolute, complete, and total revelation. Okay. What? Purim? Complete and total darkness. What did the Yidden reveal? Azoy v'nit andrish. There's no such thing as life without Torah. We're not giving up the Torah. And the Alter Rebbe tells us, and we saw this earlier in the Maimer, that if the Yidden had chas v'sholem, it changed their religion from Torah and mitzvahs to whatever the religion of the day was, they would have been saved. Only people who are holding out Torah and mitzvahs were under the decree. You could exit the decree. Unlike the decree of 80 years ago in Europe, that decree of Haman was only relative to Yehudim, meaning people who were shaykh to Das Yehudis. If someone gave up that religion and decided to take upon himself the religion of the day in Persia, he would be spared.
Temporarily.
Why temporarily? He'd be spared. He wouldn't be killed. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. Right? Okay. Did anybody do that? Evidently no one. So the Alter Rebbe says. No one did it. Okay. Unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh. Okay, but this is all at the time of the Gezerah. That pasuk, the Kibul Yehudim, is after the miracle. It's when everything's good. It's right by the Yehudi, my servicing was as guard. That's right there. So that seems hard to understand. Now, theoretically, we say, oh, what do we mean is they accepted then? Okay, but the pasuk says right now they're accepting the Torah. Now, after this miracle, the Yidden are accepting the Torah and things are great. So there's an acceptance of the Torah afterwards, which is even greater. So we don't know what that is. The Rebbe didn't explain that yet. Right? The Rebbe said, just like relative to the acceptance of the Torah, there's these two levels, time of Gezerah after the miracle, so too relative to Kosis Lamar, there's two levels. There's the Kosis Lamar, the crushedness of Gullus, that was a result of the terrible situation at the time of the decree, that brought about a revelation of the Ma'or, and that was expressed in unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh, incredible self-sacrifice, as we explained throughout the whole Maimer. Right? And now all of a sudden there's a new level. Kosis Lamar, the crushedness of the Jew, not mitzad the situation in Gullus, but mitzad the essential existence of Gullus. That Gullus crushes the Yid, even though he's got a Lexus and a house with a pool. And Svarim on his shelf. Ein Sof Svarim. English. Art scroll. Wow. It's all there.
This might be just a big question. What if he said that Haman's decree actually influenced more Jewish people to return back to Torah?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely, because we know they were definitely in a low state because they went to the party. They evidently thought that it was a reasonable thing to embrace whatever culture they were living in. I don't know whatever Persian culture it was in those days. They embraced it. Were part of it. Right? Okay, that's Gullus. Tends to happen to Jews in Gullus. Tend to embrace a certain culture that's not Jewish. Right? Define themselves that way. Right? Vayinyan, the Rebbe explains. Where does this brokenness come from? Does Zesh Yisrael Hem Shvurim Mizeh Shem Begolos? Top of page Kuf Lamed. That which the Jews are broken by virtue of the fact that they're in Golos. Gam Kishiyesh Lem Archova Begashmis Beruchnius. Also, when they have, it's good in Gashmis, it's good in Ruchnius. They live in a religious neighborhood. The religious neighborhood has all the religious services imaginable. They can pick one of 3 mikvahs in the morning. There's 17 minyanim within four blocks of their house. Now we don't, right? It used to be that if you were learning something like this where we used to be, we've moved to a I'm just saying this as a joke, right? A godless part of Yerushalayim, right? But where we used to be, right? Where we used to be, so you could literally say that within 10 blocks of us in every generation, there were a few thousand people learning Torah. Right? We're in the old building. That was true. That's pretty astounding. I mean, that was just, yeah, that's the reality we live in. Okay. Fine. Amazing. That's our gullus. Harchava, Gashmias, Ruchnias. Okay, here in Eretz Yisrael, people don't have the Gashmias that people have in America. Right? The Gashmias here in Eretz Yisrael is much closer to European level of Gashmias, right? Not American level of Gashmias. Right? Europeans have to think about the size of their kitchen. Americans don't. Let's just build another 4,000 meters of kitchen over here. We've got room. Baruch Hashem. Now, obviously not every American. But Baruch Hashem. Gashmias in America is really just astounding. Okay, fine. Baruch Hashem. People live in big, huge houses, many people, right? With, a yard, and they have a couple of cars, and they might even have a pool, which is their mikveh. And, if they live in a place without a mikveh, if they live in a place with a mikveh, so then they, if they're lazy, they use their pool. And if they're feeling a little more serious, they'll go to the mikveh in the shul because their pool's cleaner than the mikveh in the shul. Whatever happens. Good. Gashmias, Ruchnias, amazing. Amazing. Restaurants. Shoo! Restaurants, they're with such a good hashgacha, the food says amen to your bracha. Amazing. Right? Amazing. And yet what? Hem shvurim mizeh shem begolus. Why? Now, that doesn't mean that the Jew isn't thankful to the Eibishter for all the goodness that he gives us. He has to be unbelievably thankful. But he also has to be broken at the same time. Why? Ki ritzay, the Rebbe says an amazing thing here. And when the Rebbe says this, he's not saying a shtickle Torah. This isn't a nice vort for the Shabbos table. The Rebbe is defining who we are. Whether we believe it or not is a separate issue, but the Rebbe believes this about every single one of us, knows this about every single one of us. Ki ritzonei amiti shel kol echad misrael. The true will, the true desire of every single Jew, who sheyeh gilui elokus, is that the Eibishter should be revealed in Elam Hazeh. That's what a Jew wants. Jew wants the Eibishter to have what the Eibishter wants. What does the Eibishter want? That's what the Eibishter wants. Va'ad shezeh, to such an extent that this, Gilui Elokus, this revelation of God in the world, noigea la'etzem mitzius, affects his essential existence. V'lochein, therefore, zeh shebizman hagolus, that which at the time of Golus, ein meir Gilui Elokus, it doesn't shine the revelation of godliness k'mei bizman habayis, as it was in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Ubefrat, and particularly k'shemizbeinin b'zeh, when a person contemplates this, Shamar Chazal say kol mishalim nivna Beis Hamikdash b'yamav. Anybody who heard the Beis Hamikdash hasn't been built in his days, harizakilu nechrav b'yamav, it's as if it had been destroyed in his days. Famous Maimar Chazal. Why? Simple shot. Because every day you and I have the ability to bring the shiur and rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. And if we didn't do that today, then it's as if we destroyed the potential Beis Hamikdash that could have been built by our actions today. Famous Farbrengen that you've probably seen a video of, right, of Yud Beis Hamikdash Namdalad, where the Rebbe quotes this medrash twice. The first time the Rebbe says the whole medrash. The second time he says anybody who hasn't built the Beis Hamikdash in their days, v'chule, doesn't even want to say that it was destroyed. And the Rebbe says, therefore, a Jew who sees the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash with his own eyes right in front of him must have a heart of stone if he's not affected by that and doesn't cry out to the Eibishter that he wants to change that reality and build the Beis Hamikdash. And so the Jew has to, in his famous line where the Rebbe says, "Kerav Welt heit," turn over the world now, turn the world upside down now, today. That a Jew who wakes up in the morning and he's still in Golus, he must have a heart of stone if he isn't taken by the fact that the Beis Hamikdash hasn't been built. The Eibishter wants a house. There was a very famous Yid here in Yerushalayim. The Rav of Yerushalayim, Rav Zonenfeld. He was the Rav of Yerushalayim. And he lived in a tiny, tiny little house. And they wanted to build him a big house. And you could see Har Bayis from his house. So he said, as long as the Eibishter doesn't have a house, I don't need one. I understand, I'm going to have a big house, the Eibishter doesn't have one. He's living on the street, he's homeless. I got my big house. Oh, it's an interesting way of looking at the world. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have a house, you should have a house. The Eibishter wants to give you the bracha to have a nice big house. I have a nice big house, okay, say that. But what's our life about? My life isn't about, I remember once meeting when they were building Arnov. So a lot of people I knew moved, a lot of people my age, so we were all at the state where it was a reasonable time to buy our first apartment. Right? Some people a little older bought somewhere else, and now they were going to move up into a newer neighborhood, Arnov. So, but a lot of people bought the first apartment we bought was there. My brother, 2 or 3 chavusas. A lot of people I knew because they were building a neighborhood, and we were all at the age where now, okay, we're married with a few kids, and we can start to think about buying a house. So, one of the people bought a house, Rabbi Greenberg. One of my teachers, my first year in yeshiva, a wonderful man, Olav Shalom, passed away a few years ago. So Rabbi Greenberg was a kohen, and he had a house somewhere else, and he sold that house, and he moved into Arnov. And so I saw him in the street once. I wasn't living in Arnov at that point. I just saw him in the street. Oh, Rabbi Greenberg, how are you? So he said, my life's... He was a very, very happy person. He said, my life's a mess. So what's wrong? And said it with a smile. He said, I'm a kohen, right? So what should I be thinking about? I should be preparing myself to bring korbanos in the Beis HaMikdash and learn how a kohen has to do this, has to do that. And if you were to come up to me and ask me, how do you bring a korban oila? What would I tell him? I think this faucet is nicer than this faucet, and these tiles look nice in the kitchen, and let's put these ones in the bathroom. Because what was he in the middle of doing? They were building their house, right? So he said, my whole head is in faucets and floors and cupboards and kitchens and bathrooms. It's driving me crazy. I'm supposed to know how to bring a korban oila, and I haven't got a clue. All I'm worried about is my faucet. Okay. It was bothering him. You have to do it, right? But it's a pain in the neck. Talk to Izzy about it. Izzy just finished going through it. It's such a pain in the neck. Because you're not forced to do anything in life. But I mean, if you're moving into the house, you have to. They don't give you a faucet. You have to pick a faucet. You have to go to a store and pick a faucet. And my wife, God bless her, I remember when we moved into our house. So she said, we're not getting our heads into this too much. Whatever floor they give us, that's our floor. Whatever tiles they give us, those are our tiles. She just didn't do it. It was amazing. For a woman, that's even harder. She didn't do it. I remember when it came to the bathroom tiles. So I was with the guy, right? So he wanted me to pay more money to have tiles up to the ceiling. They only gave tiles a certain, and then there would be wall. So he's saying it's not good only to have tiles to here. You need more. So I was going to pay him more. So I wasn't usually too good at this, but I remember the conversation. It was 35 years ago, 37 years ago. I said, I understand. You just sold me a house that you built. And I paid, and it's a joke what we paid. We paid $86,000. It's now worth $1 million. We paid $86,000 for it. Right? I say, I paid $86,000 for it. I paid you $86,000 for this house. And you're telling me that with my $86,000, you don't have enough pride in what you build, that you're going to give me enough tiles in the bathroom, that my bathroom will be a normal bathroom? That's what you're telling me right now, is that what you give me isn't normal. You take pride in that work? So he said, okay, we'll give you the extra tiles for free. He was booshed up. It's like crazy. Well, he's just trying to make an extra buck, right? That's all he's doing. That's the way they do it, right? Okay. But that was about the extent of the involvement in the whole thing. Extra windows, right? We also wanted to do something in a bathroom with some pipes, and the plumber who did the whole plumbing for the whole building. Oh gosh, what was his name? Such a sweet Jew. Got him to vote Gimel in the election that year. When the Rebbe said everybody should vote Gimel, we got him to vote Gimel. Anyway, so he's walking around. He was a nephew of the people who built the building. So I said, there's something we want to do with our pipes. Will you come do it? He said, no, for that you need a real plumber. This is the guy who did the pipes in the whole building. For what we want to do, you need a real plumber. So what was he? He did the pipes in the whole building. He wasn't a real plumber. That says a lot about the pipes in the building, but anyway. Okay. But you do your best to try to not stick your whole body and your whole head into this. Right? I heard it in the name of the Tzemach Tzedek. Some people say it was the Reb Marash, but whoever, that one of the Chassidim had a factory where he made boots. Right? Evidently, he was a little too involved in his factory. So I heard it in the name of the Tzemach Tzedek, so I'll say it that way. Though I've told the story, and some people said they heard it in the name of the Reb Marash. It's his son. That the Rebbe said to him, I understand people who put feet in their boots, but I've never met anybody who puts his whole head into boots. What do we really want? What is the Rebbe just thought? What's our ratzon amiti? That the Eibusher should have a house. Hini mizeh atzmai, from this itself, is he, meaning he is, in ganzen, completely sutreiselt, crushed, kosis. Sutreiselt really means like shaken up. That's the kosis lamar at the end. The Yidden reached a higher level. And we're going to see that this is going to be connected to Veata, Lecha, Shem, and Zayzak, because this is going to answer our question. Why the Kosis Lamar in the Pasuk is going to be the second level, both, but also the second level, and that's, we don't know how yet, but that's going to be connected to Veata, Lecha, Shem, and Zayzak. Aravoid. Okay. But at this point, what's the Rebbe saying? Two different levels of Kabbalah Satara, which the Rebbe hasn't explained yet. I mean, he did, but he hasn't explained it more. But what the Rebbe has explained is the two different levels of Kosis Lamar. There's a sense of crushedness that the Jew feels by virtue of the terrible situation in Golus. And that brings the Yid closer to the Eibusher. Then there's the sense of crushedness that the Yid feels, not by the situation in Golus. The situation in Golus is wonderful. But by the essential existence of Golus, which is a much higher level, because that has to touch a place in the Yid that's much greater than the place that's responsible for the Mesiras Nefesh when things are tough. Because that's when the Yid is showing his essential connection to the Eibusher on the highest level imaginable. Because all he cares about is that the Eibusher gets what the Eibusher wants. His own Ritzainus, the Eibusher should get what the Eibusher wants. Let's see a couple more lines and then we'll stop. Now the Rebbe says something really fascinating. Even when a Jew's on the highest level. That it reveals Meir Etzlai, it shines by this Jew. Gilu Elokus, a revelation of godliness, but dugmas like a Gilu Yishai B'zman HaBayis, like the revelation that was at the time of the Bayis. Look at footnote 47. What Hillel Parcher says, La'armi or Yedua, it says, he's in the source of it. Lifnei Rashbi, Lei Nechrav HaBayis Klal. The Rashbi, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai didn't experience Churban HaBayis. Churban HaBayis doesn't affect his experience of Elokus. Okay, there could be such a person. A person who sees Elokus in a way that we can't even imagine. Mikol Moker, that person, Mizeh shebechlolas ha'olam, by virtue of the fact that in the world at large, Ein Meir El Agilui, this Gilui that he as an individual experiences, but this isn't found everywhere else. Muchach, that shows clearly, Shegam Agilui Shmeir Etzlai, also the revelation that shines by him, who Gilui Mugbal, is limited. Because the fact is that it's not everywhere. Which is the difference between the Gilui and the Batei Mikdash's Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni, as opposed to Bayis Shlishi. Bayis Shlishi, the revelation of the Eibusher is going to be in the whole world, not just in that particular place. So they were limited to a certain degree. But here's the Rebbe's using them as the prototype of revelation. The incredible revelation. Okay, that revelation, if it's only by that particular person, there's a person who experiences Elokus in a very powerful way, so that person isn't going to be satisfied with that because he wants what does he want also? That the Eibusher should be revealed everywhere, and it also says something about his revelation that is limited. I wonder who the Rebbe is talking about. The Kishameir Gilir Ein Seif, that when it shines, the revelation, one more, we'll go three more lines to the period at the end of 3 lines. The Kishameir Gilir Ein Seif, a Bilti Gvul, that when it shines, the revelation of Ein Sof that's unlimited, Hagili hu b'kol makom, it's not limited by space. It's in every place. Kishiyesh nei makom echad, and when there's one place, afilu pina nidachas, even some forsaken little pina nidachas means in English you say a God-forsaken little place. There's no such thing, right? But a little, some place in the middle of nowhere, some village at the end of some Australian dirt road. Right. Yorkie's Knob. As you drive from where my kids have a Chabad house into the town, which is about 20 kilometers away, one of the exits is a place called Yorkie's Knob. Only Australians would name a place Yorkie's Knob. There's a neighborhood called Yorkie's Knob. Why is it? Because a knob is like a knob on a door, and it sticks out into the ocean like a knob on a door. So it's called Yorkie. I don't know who Yorkie was. Yorkie's Knob. Okay, so Yorkie's Knob. Even in Yorkie's Knob, if there's a Yid in Yorkie's Knob, if there's a situation that even there, She'ein Meir Sham Gilu Elokus, there's not a revelation of the Eibishter in that faraway place, that's because the revelation, Gamba Makam Shumer, even in the place where it does shine, Gilui Mugbal is limited. And that crushes the Yid. Can't stand that there's a place in the world where the Eibush is not revealed. Even the person who experiences revelation in his own life. Allah is Kama Vakama, the person who doesn't experience revelation in his own life, he's crushed by the fact that the Eibush isn't revealed, but not mitzad his own experience. But mitzad the Eibishter's experience. What does the Eibishter want? The Eibishter wants to be revealed in Eilam Hazeh. Okay, so what crushes the Yid? He's not. That affects me personally. There's no question about that. That affects me personally. But what bothers the Yid is not that I'm affected personally, but the Eibishter doesn't have a house. The Eibishter doesn't have a home. David HaMelech said the same thing, right? I have a nice big palace. The Eibishter doesn't have a house, so he's like, I have to build him a house, right? It's psukim in Tanakh. So how can it be that I'm living in a house and the Eibishter's in a tent? Right? Okay, we better build him a base of mikdash. And what did God say to him? Not you. Bidi. Yeah, don't worry. It's a good idea. Great idea. Write the plans, right? But your son will build it, not you. And he did. Baruch Hashem. And it lasted for 410 years. Okay. Now, that wasn't the final deal. We know that. Okay. Even at the time of the first base of mikdash already, the Nevi'im at the end of the Tkuf of the first base of mikdash are prophesying about the third base of mikdash, not the second. Okay.
What does it mean that the first and second base of mikdash were mugbalim? It was just in those, like the revelation was only in those in that place?
In those spaces. Whereas, what do we say in Wasid Lover? So the Kiddush of Yerushalayim was spread to all of Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael was spread to all the world. Right? The whole world will be a place of unbelievable revelation. It won't be limited. Yom Shekula Shabbos, time also all of time will be in a state of Kiddush. As long as Shabbos is one day a week, that has a beginning and an end, so then the Kiddush of Shabbos is limited. As great as it is, it's amazing Kiddush, but it's limited because it ends. That's why true Kabbalah Satara is Machres of Shabbos, the day after Shabbos, and a little beyond Shabbos. If you want to really get the Torah, you have to get beyond Shabbos.
When it says who gave you we're talking about Rashbi there, we're talking about someone else.
Well, the Rebbe brings the Rashbi in the if you would ask the Rebbe, he would say he's talking about the future. If you ask us, we'd say he's also referring to himself. I don't know what he's referring to himself. We would apply it to the Rebbe also. Here's this person who has an unbelievable Gilui Elokus in his own life, but isn't in any way, shape, or form satisfied by that. As a matter of fact, who's driven more than anybody on earth to make sure that the Eibush is revealed in every little corner of the world?
Right.
After the person who seems to probably, we would say, have the greatest revelation inside himself. Okay, say it, but that doesn't. Who's more crushed by the existence of Golos than anybody we know? Right? He's trying to get us to where he is. We resist most powerfully.
I remember who asked, but yesterday somebody asked if only in Chabad they talk about the fact that Mordechai was the Raya Memna.
In general, I
So I don't know who asked, but I was learning Tzidkas Tzedek, and
Oh, yeah.
like it was not like I asked the rabbi, and he's like, yeah. I was like, oh, he was saying how do we get out of this? And I'm like, oh, the Mayanot. He's like, that's Moshe, and I'm like, no, it's also Mordechai. He's like, oh, I never heard of that.
Well, see, he should have heard of that because it's a medrash.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not going to apply to Rabbi Hamna, the medrash, but right, the medrash. That's why it's so interesting that the Rebbe brings the source in Nigla for that here.
Right.
Though it only says Mordechai, whereas in Chassidus and Pneumius, not Chassidus, and Pneumius and the Zeri, so it says every generation.
Right.
But that's what we were talking about. That particular idea in the Zohar is, on a certain level, the basic difference between Chassidim and everybody else. Because Chassidim will talk about the fact that there's someone separate from everybody else in every generation. No Chassidim talk about it the way we do. And it bothers some of the Chassidim that we talk about it the way we do. But a lot of Chassidim don't do it. I remember having a conversation with a Ger Chassid, who was the father of a student of mine. He grew up a Ger Chassid in New York. Grew up a Ger Chassid, the kid left, and he came back through Lubavitch. And the father was happy as can be. I mean, it didn't bother him at all. His kid was frum. He was just happy. And I remember having a conversation with him. Because we were talking about his son. And he lived in New York, so when I was in New York, I went to visit him, to talk to him. So he said something that no Lubavitcher would ever say. He said, my Rebbe is my Rebbe, but your Rebbe is the Rebbe of the Rebbes. The Lubavitcher would just never say that.
Yeah.
Meaning, if your Rebbe is the Rebbe of the Rebbes, so then why aren't you his chassid, right? Like, we just don't think that way. But we never got that way, right? But especially this generation. I think probably also the generation of the Friedrich Rebbe, it was there, but in our generation, the Rebbe emphasizes that tremendously. And that annoys some Chassidim. Okay, say that. They get annoyed by how, well, the Jews tend to get annoyed by how much we like our Rebbe.
Good question. As Rio and I have started doing American Karu, I was wondering if, assuming he's okay with it, could we work on that Maimon instead of becoming the Mysticism of Chassidus? Would you like us to be here doing around the
Who you learning this with?
Israel?
No, well, he's certainly never seen Kamarabba, so I want him to.
Okay.
No, they should be done at another time. Right? You might also want to do it if you can. I would assume Rabbi Paltiel probably has shiurim in it.
Probably.
I mean, Asher Fargers definitely does, but it's in Hebrew. You can learn it with Rabbi Paltiel. So when it's this, it's good to have someone explain the ideas because it fills out things that you might miss. So learning with Rabbi Paltiel will be a good idea.
Sounds
I
good.
mean, my kids know how to learn. When they learn Chassidus themselves, they learn with
Yeah, with the shiur.
Asher Fargers, Paltiel, Yoel, someone. Everybody does. I mean, that's everybody learns Chassidus.
Yeah.
If there's a shiur, if there's not a shiur, there's nothing I can do. Because there's a certain environment, find someone explain it. But most of the Mugadik Maimar, I'm sure, Paltiel.
Sure. I mean, this one also, I think there's been so many classes. I think it's even in one of the selected Maimar of the Rebbe books and selected lessons and.
Oh, is it in one of those books also?
I think so.
Okay, so that's also good. But I mean, Paltiel's better than anybody who wrote a book.
Yeah.
He's just so good. Though it takes longer.
Yeah.
You can learn it yourself and then listen while you're walking or doing something else. Listen to Paltiel in your ears, and then come back and discuss it later. You don't have to sit here with Paltiel and learn.
Yeah.
But he's really good.
Great.
Asher Farkish is really good. One of the reasons a person should learn Hebrew so he can learn Chassidus. Rav Yoel is amazing. It's just most of the recordings